and today we're going to demonstrate how to do a half-high wall. First thing you need, of course, is the InSoFast. And what I like to do with the InSoFast is set it up as a table. This will be my cutting table, and I have another box right over here. So as I cut panels, I have a stable, firm platform in which to make my cuts. Now, what we are going to be doing, and I'll show you, we are going to be doing this entire wall all the way along here to this section where we have a pop out or a half-high wall, something that comes out. So we'll be doing an inside and an outside and a half-high wall transition right here. Once we get to this section up here, we're going to cap this off, and then we're going to insulate this wood frame all the way up to the floor joist. So we'll get started, and we will talk about, and I think this is important, is the tools that you'll need on the job site. The tools you'll need: some kind of saw for cutting across the studs, power saw or a hand saw, sharp tooth blade hand saw, an extended razor blade knife, a tape measure, but you'll only need limited use of a tape measure, a can of spray foam, and a marking pen, and glue or mechanical fasteners. So what InSoFast is, it is an insulation panel which we embed a stud into. The stud runs all the way through the panel, and they're every 16 inches on center. On the back side, there's electrical raceways that are built in every 16 inches on center and 2 foot high for your horizontal electric runs. So the first thing you have to do when you're doing an InSoFast project is measure out your wall. So what we want to determine first is the height of our project. So from the floor to your floor joist up above, you want to measure that. And what we get here is 7 foot 1 inch. The next dimension that you'll need is the linear length of all the walls added together. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure from this end to here, and we get 7 foot 3 inches, and we're going to cut it around this area and then continue it down and along until we get the total length of the entire wall, which is 192 inches or 16 feet. So that works out pretty easy for InSoFast. So 7 times 16, that's 42, plus 70, that's 112 square feet. So 112 square feet is 3 InSoFast boxes. There's 5 panels in a box, and there's 40 square feet in each box. So for this particular project, we're going to need 3 boxes. So let's get started. Now the first panel we're going to install, it's a full panel, but as we come to this end of the wall, there's a stud. Now we want to continue the InSoFast all the way up, so our drywall is going to follow along. So just to start on this particular project, we're going to put our first panel down, and we want to move this stud tight up against this wall, maybe about a 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be tight. So the first thing we're going to do is trim out our panel. There's technical difficulties. Now, on this panel, we're going to cut along this edge of the panel, and we're going to use that extended razor blade knife. So when you're cutting InSoFast, it's just easy, nice pulls. Just a couple of pulls with a sharp razor blade knife, and that will give you a good, clean, pretty dust-free cut right there, nice and smooth. We're using a 1.25 pound density foam, which means it is a really tight fusion. It's not like your typical beadboard or that stuff you'd see at the major lumber stores. It is a high density insulation, which gives you a higher R value per inch. Now, with this cut, we have our first panel we can put into place. Now our next panel is just going to follow right along, and we're just going to mark it down here and take a look at where it ends. Now, where it ends, and I think this is pretty important to show you, it sticks out a little bit right here. So we have to wrap this panel or this InSoFast around this edge, and if we take that piece that we just cut and we put it along there, that is actually pretty much a perfect size, and that'll fit right there. But what I want to do is I want to make sure, and I pre-cut this one, that this wraps around and I have a stud on this inside corner. So we're going to save this piece for later. And our next panel, as it comes along the bottom edge, okay, what I did earlier is I had the InSoFast go all the way across this wall, so I trimmed it off flush right here, but I want to still continue that stud layout going through, so I have another pre-cut piece. That's this one. And what I want you to notice is that stud actually is sort of hidden behind there now. So we only have one stud going through. Now, that's why I have this concrete block. So we're getting to our last panel right here, and you'll notice, or I'll show you, that it is just a little bit too long. Now this panel, when I set it down here, as I'm going across here, when it hits that inside corner, you can see that it's actually too long. So what we have to do is figure out how to cut this. Now we can take a tape measure and we could measure that area out, and in fact let's do that. Let's measure from here to here, and that's 39.5 inches. So we can lay this out here, measure down 39 inches, and that would give us a cut right to that stud line. Another way to do it, and I think it's a little bit better, a little bit easier, and it's a tip or a trick. It's a shortcut. So that shortcut is you take this panel, you put it in the corner, and you see that it overlaps. Now, this is the end that tucks into this panel. So this panel, we don't want to cut this end. We want to cut off, and you see I flipped that around. We want to cut off this end. So where this line meets up, I am going to put a mark right here, along here. Now that measurement and this one, they actually coincide. So it's a right cut, a correct cut. So simply, what we're going to do is, again, just do a couple of pulls with the razor blade knife. You don't have to cut through all the way the first time. In fact, it's a little bit easier just to make a couple of scores, kind of like drywall. So sort of a score and snap. Now here we go. We can set this panel right in place. Now, we start on the second level. Now the second level, this is pretty high right here. So it's not a full panel height, and we can tape measure that again. To the top of this, from here to here, is 14.5 inches. But what I want to do is I want to come to the top of this 2x4. The reason I want to do that is I want to take my pieces that I've cut, and never throw this away. This is a great piece. There's a stud in here. You can always put flat stock, regular 2-inch insulation up against it. So if this was up against the wall and you ran out, had to put a piece of 2-inch foam in between, go ahead and do it. That's easier than ordering one panel or one box from us. You can solve your problem by going to a regular home store. Now, back to this. So here we are. We want to end it right to here. Okay, so this is the top of our panel. This will be our level flush surface when we're done. So I want to continue the InSoFast, and I'll put a full panel here. You know, what I really want is a half panel. That way it'll show better. So this half panel right here, and where I want to cut it to, this line right along the top. So I want to mark that. right here, that's where I'd want to cut this piece of foam. Now I'm going to measure that out from here to here, and I'm measuring from the top. I'm not measuring from the tongue, I'm measuring from the top, and I want to measure right to that, and that happens to be a perfect 18 inches. Now, cutting InSoFast indoors can be messy. There's a couple of things you can do. One, have a nice vacuum cleaner available. I like this one. This is a rigid. And it'll pick up all the foam dust. The best thing to do is to cut it outside. That way you don't have foam dust tracking all through your house. When you cut it outside, after all your cuts are made, you leaf blower the foam away from all the parts and pieces, and you leaf blower yourself so you can walk in nice and clean and carry those panels in so you don't track a whole bunch of foam dust all around the house. Now, truth in advertising here, I did pre-cut these outside. So I did cut the 18-inch pieces already. And the first piece I cut, again, the stud goes all the way to this inside corner. And there we go. The next piece follows right along. And the final piece, which runs all the way to this edge. So now we have the half-high wall, and the next piece that we're going to have to cut, and this happens to be the scrap piece from cutting off of here. And this will fit right in between there. Now, it didn't fit perfect. In fact, we had just a little bit too much right here. We have to cut this tongue off the top of the panel. So again, we're going to take a razor blade knife, and we're just going to score this and take that tongue off so we can cap that off. All right. There we go. That'll fit in there. Now, I still want to be able to keep the stud lines running and rolling together. So I'm going to trim off this piece. So now that's getting me to where I need to be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you cutting in a quick video. Well, actually, I'm going to show you a little bit about gluing. The top question we get is, can this stud support drywall? And will the glue hold the panel to the wall? This glue strip, every 16 inches on center, 24 inches long, will do the job. So what I have here is I have a stud that we've nailed and screwed lots of screws into here. You couldn't do that with a 2x4 or a furring strip without it cracking or splitting. We didn't crack, we didn't split. And we glued that to this concrete block. And you can see how the dovetails have interlocked and wrapped around and hold that stud into place. So at 108 pounds per lineal inch, and this is about 16 inches long, that's 1,600 pounds worth of pull-off right there. Now a screw or nail is going to pull out of this before the glue will give up on the concrete block. If you don't trust glue, and that's okay, use a Tapcon, screw through the stud into the concrete block, and that'll hold it tight and fast too. But the way this works, and what we've done, we've engineered it so these studs become one with the panel. It's all interlocked, and the synergistic strength of it, all here, very low thermal transfer, if any at all. So, okay, so I'm back, and you were just watching a pre-recorded piece. Now, this is starting to get a little floppy here, kind of high up, so I'm going to brace it with something heavy so it doesn't flop over. The interlocks will keep this entire section together, but in order for the weight of it not to buckle out or to fall over, I want to support it a little bit. What I want to show you now is as we cut these top pieces off, and start piecing them in there, if you take a look at this section right here, this is just flopping all down. It's not working. And we have a condition here that I don't like, that soil gas and air can leak up through these chambers. So we want to cap this off too. So in order to cap that off, I gotta admit to you, you can use the InSoFast parts and pieces, but this is only 1.5 inches high. So not all the answers come out of InSoFast, and sometimes you can use another insulation that'll give you the right dimension. It'll seal off this top and it'll give you a nice clean straight line. Now, one of the things I didn't show you earlier, because it gets a little confusing, we'll handle this at another time, but this wall is bowed. So it's bowed and it cups in. So there's a lot of nuances that you have to do, but for now we're just going to cut and piece everything together so we can run this wall straight up. So now what we need to do is find our length or our width of the foam piece that we're going to cut right there. And this is the peak of the bow right here. So our peak is 3 inches. So I want to cut a continuous 3-inch strip right here that'll plumb that wall out, going from this 2x6 out to the edge and give us a nice flat straight edge to follow. So we're going to cut this scrap foam into 3-inch strips. I had a little technical difficulties there. I made an error in camera switching. I'll get better at it, I promise. So we're going to be cutting 3-inch strips down here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to fit. In fact, it's better if it's not perfect and it's a little loose. The reason for that being is if it's a little loose, what's nice about that you can spray foam and air seal it so much easier. These one-part spray foams that we use, they bond well with all the insulations out there, and it's also an adhesive. This is the stuff that we recommend, great stuff. It's available. There's a lot other foam systems available with professional guns that work just as well. This is just consumer friendly and easy to get at a major lumber store. So here we go. This is a 3-inch piece of wood. Actually, not quite 3 inches. It's 2.5. So if I stick out a 1/2 inch on this side, I know that'll be pretty close. Again, little camera difficulties. Again, scoring the insulation, it's best to make a couple of scores, not to try to do it all at once. That's our first 3-inch piece. Give myself about a 1/2 inch right there. Two. Let's see how many pieces I need. We'll cut one more. Now again, I'm not cutting this out all that accurate because I figure I can spray foam and seal it in. This is not my favorite foam. This is a polyiso cyanurate foam. And you can see as you cut through there, there's big voids and gaps, and they cover that with a piece of aluminum foil that holds the blowing agent or the gas inside. It promotes itself as being a very high R value, and that's true when it's first tested at 75 degrees. It is up to an R6. As it ages and loses gas, its age value goes down. As it gets colder, not at 75 degrees, that's where the test, it's kind of like standardized testing. The test at 75 degrees, this performs really well. However, a lot of them, as the temperature drops, the R value drops in this. Where styrenes, the polystyrenes, the whites, the pinks, the blue, the green boards, their R value actually goes up as the temperature drops. It's an interesting thing. It has to do with the blowing agent, the gas that they inject into this foam as they mix it. There's a lot of good reasons to use this foam. I just can't think of any. So there we go. That is our insulated cap and top. We now put our InSoFast piece on top right here, tie it all in. I had to pull that out a little bit. Again, like I said, it's a bowed wall. Bowed and out of plumb. So now I got to move my tools. So here we have this capped off. Now you can get other scrap foam that you've been using to cap this section off right here. We'd have to trim this one down a little bit. Let's see, that's right along this edge. Yeah, that's right along that edge. So we'll get our razor blade knife. Again, not the best cut right there, but I don't care, because we're going to spray foam and seal that a little bit later. Now that we have this section done right here, we can continue the InSoFast with this trimmed off piece right on up the wall. And here we can actually use our first mechanical fastener. Our studs line up. There we go. Got our first installed piece. We can put more screws in as needed, but for right now, let's just continue on. You know, I need to put another one in. Actually, that'll lock it in place. All right, so again, here is our InSoFast. We have to make this match up and meet, and we don't want to have this interlock stack bond. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut this piece right along to this stud, and we're going to lay that one up. Now, I should explain this. You probably already saw it, but what happens here is you want to measure from the top of the tongue to the roof, to the floor joist, to give yourself a lift up and drop down. So when you cut that down, you won't be struggling with jamming it in. You'll just be able to push it into place and drop it down. So there you have that to there. We're transitioning to this wall. Let's see. So here's the piece we have to cut. Again, it's 18 inches. So what we do to measure this, we mark it to the top of the stud right there. And then we would cut it to fit. But then again, well, heck, I think I have a piece that'll work there. for now, that's what we do. Now we'd want to have a stud end right here, but I'm pretty lazy. And I have more wall to do, and I want to get it all done. So I'm going to switch to another camera view. And now we're continuing on this wall, and we have to make a specific cut to make this work. So what would that be? That would be to this stud line right here to fit this piece in there and continue our wall. So all right, to that stud, I'm going to cut along this line right here. And we'll continue working our wall right on down. Next panel is a full panel. I want to point this out. Take a look at this panel. It is chewed up, it is chipped, it is dinged, it is dented, but it still works. So this piece, again, cut to fit in between there. Actually, it doesn't fit. I got to trim it off. So how much do I have to trim? Maybe a 1/16 of an inch, or I'm going to go a little fat and split the difference right here, and I'm going to follow along this high ridge to make my cut. There, got that cut. Fits in nice and snug. In fact, there's a little gap in there, but that gap is good because what we're going to do to finish this wall is we're going to spray foam those gaps and air seal it really well. So let's continue on. Let's see. And I found it. This is what I was looking for. That piece to fit right in there. And now I remember what this piece was for. Got to mark your panels. Make sure you don't get them confused. Good tip. Luckily, I have another one. And again, this was a piece I had cut off before to make it fit in and along there. And now I can go back to a full panel. Now, again, and I want to show this on the other camera view because I think that'll show it a little bit clearer. It will show how these chips and chunks, which are chewed out of the panel, get locked and sealed in there, and it maintains its insulation integrity going all the way through. Now we're rounding out, finishing it up, and we have those two half-high panels that we cut earlier in the demo. And this piece actually doesn't belong here, but I thought it would look good for the video. So now we have an insulated wall system again, complete and all the way through the wall. We have this started right there. We have just one cut to make, or a stud that we can get from one of the scraps. We could actually screw onto there as a stud extension, so you can use your scrap pieces. And right in and along here, what do you do? So excuse me a second. How do you handle these inside and outside corners? How do I finish this off with drywall? That's pretty simple. Now, we even sell these now. They're available through us. This is a 3-inch by 3-inch 25 gauge steel angle. And what I would tell you to do on an outside corner is to get the Loctite PL Premium and put a bead of adhesive all along this edge, flip it to this side, and a bead of adhesive all along this edge, and then take that glued piece and put it right in the corner. Now that's going to give you an insulated corner, okay, because there's no through wall conduction of the metal, and it's a good, solid, hard corner that's going to finish really well. You'll be able to zip your drywall screws into there. It's easy to tin snip it with a tin snip, or you can even chop saw it with a metal bi-blade, so you can get that going. And again, same condition up along this edge. You can take that metal corner piece and put it along the top. Now you have a top going through here. You got an air seal. And in construction, when a building official wants a fire block at the top, and it's not needed with InSoFast because we're not a cavity wall system, but this is what I'd recommend you do. Take the metal angle iron and finish off the top of your wall that way too. So this steel piece comes very handy, and it's available at the Home Depots, it's available at the Lowe's, it's available at a drywall yard. It's very common in steel stud construction, commercial grade steel stud construction, but they're a 10-foot piece or an 8-foot piece is around $5. We have to sell that same 8-foot piece. We cut it in half, and it's going to cost you $20. We have to ship it to you, and it's something you can get local. So we recommend try and get it local if you can. If you can't, we're here to help you out, but we got to make a living. So that's pretty much the entire wall, less gluing. We're ready to finish. One of the things, on finishing the wall, on finishing this wall, it's pretty simple. You can put a wood cap on here, screw it into this stud. You can screw that down to the 2x6 stud down there and screw into here. Now you have a nice finished feature shelf going through here. You can put knickknacks, or in my case, it's a great place for me to store my tools so I can demonstrate later. Or my supplies, drywall, anything you need. Well, that is it for today. That is it for today. Thanks for watching. If it was informative, great. If you have more questions and you're not quite sure what we mean by this and that, give us a call. Tomorrow I'll probably work on glue or mechanical screw, how to attach this to a wall, how many fasteners you need. So thanks for watching. I appreciate your interest. Bye now.